For me, hiking isn't about getting outside to exercise. That's just a fun byproduct. It's actually a better way to travel. So it's a better way to get into these small towns, where you don't have a lot of international flavor, where it's more local, where people speak the local language, they cook local food, listen to local music.
Welcome to Zestful Aging, where I speak with changemakers from all over the world, from every walk of life, who will inspire you to live with zest. I'm your host, Nicole Christina, and my mission is to bring you optimism about aging and help you make full use of the new opportunities that only come at this stage of life. To find out more about this podcast, hop on over to zestfulaging.com. And while you're there, sign up for my email newsletter, The Insider, where you will get fun and quirky tidbits about the show and my exploits, including when I went python hunting in the Everglades with one of my guests. And if you love the podcast, I'd be grateful if you shared it with your friends. And check out my new YouTube channel where you will find never before heard bonus episodes at Zestful Aging 132. Have you ever considered hiking in Europe, but think of hiking as just far too serious, that's for super athletes? Well, it doesn't have to be. And our guest today is going to talk to us about ways to make hiking in Europe more accessible and really safe, especially for solo travelers. Cassandra Overby is the author of Explore Europe on Foot and several other walking-based travel guides that promote hiking as a better way to travel. She also teaches classes and offers trip consultations to help people plan the walking trip of their dreams. I just had a little mini consultation before we got on mic. Cassandra is also a specialist on the Camino de Santiago, is likely one of the very few people who got married on the steps of the cathedral in Santiago. Welcome to the show, Cassandra.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about my favorite subject, which is hiking.
I know, your favorite subject. And it sounds like part of your favorite subject is kind of addressing this maybe fallacy that you have to be super buff and a super athlete to go hiking in Europe or wherever you are when you're traveling. Is that something that comes up a lot?
It is. So I think especially because I'm from the Pacific Northwest, where hiking is so popular with younger people. And, we have a lot of people who work in tech, and then on the weekends they go out and they hike these really strenuous hikes, and it's a point of pride. And it's just kind of our flavor here in the Pacific Northwest. And so I get a lot of people thinking that when I say hiking or walking, I'm talking about something really stressful like that, or really strenuous, that is mainly about exercise. And what I'm promoting is not that. It can be, if that's what you really love to do. There's some challenging hikes in Europe that you can test your mettle on, but it doesn't have to be like that. And actually, I enjoy it in a different way, a way that's more relaxing. For me, hiking isn't about getting outside to exercise. That's just a fun byproduct. It's actually a better way to travel. So it's a better way to get into these small towns, where you don't have a lot of international flavor, where it's more local, where people speak the local language, they cook local food, listen to local music. And generally, the trails in Europe are so well designed for people who aren't super athletes. So they're wonderful to be able to kind of meander from village to village or hut to hut and have amenities along the way that really help you make your hike enjoyable.
That's so interesting, because it really does sort of fly in the face of I think what most people think of. And as Americans, we want to professionalize everything and have the highest tech, drying outfits and all of this stuff. Where, as particularly in Scandinavia, people just are like, yeah, we're going to go for a hike. We don't have to be hikers. We can just go
Right.
for a walk. We tend to be a little, maybe competitive or turn it into some kind of professional thing. So it's more for the people almost. I hear you saying it's like, yeah, everybody can do this.
Right. Because there's honestly nothing more simple than just walking, just putting one
Mhm.
foot in front of the other. And, there's been a movement in the last few years towards slow travel. So, not just checking a bunch of
Mhm.
things off your list and moving as fast as you can to hit everything, but to actually slow down, use your five senses, and take everything in. More isn't necessarily better. And when you're going out on trail, you have those built in moments to be able to slow down and to see what's around you, but to smell the flowers and to take a break. And one of my favorite things to do is to bring along a little plastic jug. It's a soft sided one that's usually used for water, but I put wine in there when I travel. And so I'll carry like a baguette with me and local cheese, and I'll take a break and read a book on trail and drink my
Oh
wine
my
and eat my
goodness.
cheese. And it makes it so decadent. It's so enjoyable. It's actually kind of spoiled me for living in the Pacific Northwest because it's just not my thing anymore to bang out really challenging hikes that don't have as many opportunities to slow down and enjoy as that.
Wow. I can imagine myself sort of pulling off and taking out my knitting and do
Yes,
like just a couple of
completely.
rows and like, yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with Gretchen Rubin's newish book on the five senses and really using the five senses. She's a happiness expert and has
Yes, I
podcasts and
really
stuff.
enjoy her books, but I hadn't heard about
Okay.
her latest project.
Right, and it's exactly this is sort of finding happiness through really paying attention to your five senses, and it sounds like that's something that has made your experiences hiking really more intimate and richer.
Yes, definitely.
Can you give us some? I love this picnic idea, and I know that on the Camino there is an abbey. Correct me if I'm not getting the details right, but that where free wine flows from a spigot, and people are filling up their water bottles. Is that something you've experienced?
Actually, I have not experienced that spot, but I know that there are a lot of places like that. And, wine really does flow on the Camino, and it is very much like water in a lot of respects. And actually, this was something so cool that I learned when I was writing my first book is that the Romans were the first ones to hike with wine. And it's because back then the water wasn't necessarily clean or safe to drink. And so they would march with wine because wine was more dependable and it wouldn't make everybody sick.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I mean, the idea that Romans were walking on these trails, and I've been, as you know, looking into the Camino with a small group of my friends and just learning, just even doing the research. I've learned so much about pilgrimages and even, the Catholics saying, if you walk the Camino, we'll absolve you of your sins.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said for taking that time. And that's what walking forces you to do. It forces you to take your time and sort through your thoughts. And, you mentioned that my husband and I got married on the Camino, and we actually spent, 5 days of walking leading up to our ceremony. And we spent all of that time meditating on the vows we were going to make and writing our vows.
Mm.
And so for us, it wasn't really a religious experience. Our pilgrimage was all about preparing for marriage. And it
Mhm.
was just such a wonderful way to slow down and really think about that and be intentional with it all before we got married in our pop up ceremony on the steps of the cathedral.
And you did pretty well with that dress. Where did you come up with that lovely dress? what was it, 24 hours
Oh
before
my
the
goodness. No,
ceremony?
we had less time than that. So we got into town when it was kind of getting dark the evening before, and we had to be on a flight to Paris, I think at 1 p.m. And so the shops were all opening like around 10, and I had an hour, I think it was, to go and find clothes for the wedding.
Oh
And
my
my husband
gosh.
went out in search of a Bible so that we could, do something like put our hands on it and take our oath. And he got flowers. And so we had to go and just find all this stuff. And it was actually really stressful. I could not find anything white. And that is why my wedding dress was a blush color.
Oh my gosh, what a beautiful story. Hi, Zesties. Hey, if you're enjoying this episode, I would so appreciate if you would share with just one person, like a family member or a friend who would enjoy and benefit from Zestful Aging podcast. Thank you so much. Something that I've been hearing a lot about, and I'd love to hear your perspective on, is this idea of just walking and what it's like for us to not be on screens and actually to perhaps even be a little bored after a while because you're walking possibly, depending on your plan, for quite a while. And there's I guess a real simplicity about, I'm just walking, here I am, just walking and
Right.
drinking water. What are the challenges that you've heard about that?
Well, I think the first few days, if you don't take a little break and ease into your trip by giving yourself 1 or 2 days to, be off your phone more and not check email, not think about work, if you just go straight into your walk, then you're having to do that tech detox while you walk. And things will still swim in your brain. And that can be kind of stressful. So one of the things I recommend is that people take time to, one, get over their jet lag, and two, just kind of settle into the country where they're going to be walking and really just find their footing before they start taking a good long walk. It makes it more successful because once you start walking, you do go into this very simple existence. And I usually turn off all notifications on my phone. I do use my phone for navigating because I think it's the safest and most reliable way to navigate with GPX tracks. And it takes any of the possible human error out of map reading, which is great because not a lot of people know how to read maps anymore.
Right, I never did.
Yeah, I took
Okay,
a
so
class at
that's a good
REI
thing.
one time and it still left my head
Ah,
spinning. So,
wow,
but
wow. Okay, good to know.
yeah, so I still use my phone when I walk, but I don't, check in. I don't do anything. And so one of my very favorite hike experiences is going like on a hut to hut route where you generally don't have much service anyways. And you lapse into this very simple, almost olden existence. And you wake up in the morning early, because it's bright out, and you want to get an early start. So you put your pack on your back and you start walking, and you just walk until it's time to take a break. And then you take your break, you fill your body with some good food, some wine, and then you keep walking and you just put one foot in front of the other all day long. And you finally get to your accommodations at night. You're ready to just take a shower, have a really good dinner. By then, your body is like, oh my goodness, I'm so exhausted because I don't normally walk all day. And so you go to bed really early. I usually journal, and when I'm doing like Swiss alpine hiking, it's a lot of places don't have electricity. So you're kind of forced to either read by candlelight, journal by candlelight, but there's nothing really to stay up for, which is great because you go to bed really early. You have like the best night's sleep ever because you filled your body with really incredible food and you've walked all day. And you just have this incredible sleep. You wake up early and you do it all over again. And it becomes this really wonderful thing. And it makes you think like, why do I need everything else? Why do I need to go faster? Why do I need all the clothes that I have at home? I mean, every
Wow.
time I get home from the trail, I'm like, I just want to give away everything I have. Because literally
Wow.
everything that I have that means something to me generally fits in my backpack.
That's so profound.
I think we are all searching for a more meaningful and joy-filled life, but we don't quite know where to start. Anyway, that's what my clients have told me. Wouldn't you just love a blueprint to figure out how to be your most vibrant self in this phase of life? If so, let me tell you about a recent discovery. It's called Camp Reinvention. Wendy Perotti and Dana Hilmer are both masters at helping people transform their lives in the direction of more joy and deep satisfaction. Their coaching approach is like rocket fuel to take you to a life that's more energized and meaningful. And right now you can sign up for Camp Reinvention with my code, which is available in the show notes. And please let me know about your experience. And now back to the show.
And I'm wondering, this podcast really focuses on women in the second half, and many women, as I'm sure you know, are really kind of in this in between, like, okay, my kids are launched. I'm either at the end of my career or looking at the end, or I've retired, and it feels very new and sometimes just confusing. And who am I now? I'm not having kids. There's so many things going on, as you know. What do you think walking, as you describe it, hiking, walking in beautiful places, how could that be helpful in terms of these pretty massive transitions in life?
I think it can help you slow down and actually take the time to be intentional about thinking what you want your next phase of life to look like. I know a lot of people who hike the Camino or another big trail like that to celebrate a really big birthday or to celebrate retirement and to really kind of put together their thoughts about what they want to do. And I think it's a really wonderful time also to kind of see who you are without all of the things that you've accumulated, without your house, without your car, without all of your clothes, and to just kind of reconnect with who you are at a base level. And I think knowing who you are at a base level and being really confident in that will take you through any phase of life. And I think it gives you a lot of confidence too that you don't need much. Maybe you want to scale back and it's not quite retirement time for you, but you want to scale back to part-time and you think, I can actually do with less. And so I don't need to make all that money and I can make this life shift a couple years earlier. I think
Go ahead, Cass.
I just think that it can really help you feel less scared about doing something like that because you see that you're having the most wonderful time and all you generally have is what's on your back. And you just walk from place to place. So it's not like you're stockpiling food or anything. You're just living with what the day gives you. And you get this deep sense of trust that it will all be okay.
Wow. Gosh, don't we all need that right now?
Yeah.
There's just a sense of self-reliance. Like, look at me look at me go. Is that my feet know what to do. I'm walking and something about just boiling it all down to the most basic elements of who you really are at your essence, not, as you say, the clothes you're wearing, the car, all of the trappings.
Because we spend so much of our life trying to build up the things that we have, right? There's always another house project to make your house a little better. There's always all of these different things until people kind of reach the point where they want to start downsizing. And I think it can just give you the courage to get there a little faster.
Wow.
And also, when you tackle something, it doesn't have to be this crazy difficult walk, but I think regardless of how difficult your walk is, if you can walk for a week, 2 weeks or whatever, you feel so proud of yourself. It gives you a lot of courage that you can tackle pretty much everything. And especially if you've never been super outdoorsy, you can pat yourself on the back for maybe going pee out in the woods, or new skills like that. And I think it can just make you feel like a rock star.
Oh, wow. I just love that. Sort of everything else being stripped away. Although as a psychotherapist, I can also imagine that being a little bit scary.
Oh, yeah. I think one of my favorite quotes is, no matter where you go, there you are.
Mm. And so some
And
of
I,
the things that haven't been quite resolved could bubble up.
right. And that's where I find journaling to be really helpful. I always journal so much when I travel because I have all these thoughts bubbling up in my head all day. And then it's just so cleansing to put them all down on paper before I go to sleep.
Mm. Have you found that as you continue to write and hike and learn and have more and more experience, it continues to change you in these ways you've described?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it just changes, especially like my family life. So I am, I'm on the uphill climb in my life where I have young kids, and it'll be many years before I'm able to, probably travel much without them. But it's changed how I want my family to be. And so, it's really important for me to take my kids on these trips. And I took my kids for 3 months to Europe last summer, and it was such a wonderful opportunity. I mean, it was so hard, but such a wonderful opportunity to teach them about the world and about, this is fun and this is a wonderful way to use our bodies, and like this is how we can spend time together, and we don't need all these other things. Like we can just walk and make our own fun.
Hmm. Wow. That's a pretty different experience, I suspect, than their peers are having.
Oh yeah. And it's funny to this day. I mean, my oldest daughter just turned 5, and the stuff she soaked up is so impressive. And I'm so excited about it. Like her love of languages now. And she loves to, ask questions about different cultures. And it really has opened her eyes to, you know, we don't just live in this small town in the US. There's a whole big
Mm.
world out there.
Hmm.
And she'll say, Mama, I'm going to go and I'm going to live in Switzerland someday, and I'm going to take you with me and we're going to hike every day.
Oh, wow. She knows
And
what her mama likes.
totally. And so it's great because I feel like I can raise them in a way that they can understand these profound things, and then maybe there won't be quite so much to chase after that'll drive them crazy in life.
Wow. Wow. What a gift. You are a good buddy of Rick Steves, who's a very big nature, well, he may be a big nature guy, but he's also a big travel guy. What was it like for you to be his guide? You were his mountain guide in Europe. Did you guide him on the Camino as well?
No, so I guided him on Tour de Mont Blanc, and we
Hmm.
filmed an episode for his TV show. And I teach at his travel center, and occasionally we'll go out for a meal or something. And I've been on his radio show quite a few times, and we just have the best time together. He has been such a great mentor to me, and also a great friend. And I'm just so happy he's in my life. He's great, and he's actually writing the foreword to my next book, which is such a huge gift.
Oh, tell us about
So
your next book.
so my next book is called Home Base Hiking Europe, and that's a working title, so it may change a little bit by the time it comes out in print. But I just turned it in May,
Mm.
turned the manuscript into the publisher, and my previous flagship book had focused on village to village and hut to hut walking in Europe, where you're changing accommodations every night. And then I wrote 3 route guides that are in-depth trail guides for trails that were in that book. And, my life has changed with having kids, and especially small kids. And my eyes were kind of open to this other kind of exploring Europe on foot, which is, I call it home base hiking. So instead of switching accommodations every night, you actually pick a really wonderful village and you do day hikes from there. So it's a great opportunity to get to know your village a little better. And, we love finding like our favorite restaurant and then going back every night, while we get to know the owner and their family.
Yes.
And it allows for that kind of experience. And it's so much more accessible either for people like me who have small kids and it's really hard to pack everything up, or people who are a little older and don't really want to pack up and unpack every day, but they really want to settle in somewhere and have some more creature comforts. And it's a lot less logistics as well, because you're only booking one place to stay.
That
You're not
sounds great.
you're not worrying about your transportation. So it just kind of simplifies it a bit.
And how does one pick a lovely, when there's so many lovely villages in Europe? How do you go about that?
So it actually was tricky for me in the beginning to find anything that wasn't like an alpine destination, because I was trying, when I was, getting my hands into like figuring this topic out, because I wanted to do it with my own family, I was trying to find like great hiking towns in Europe, and literally everything was in the Alps. And I was like, I know there is great stuff beyond that because I've hiked it, like as part of multi-day treks and stuff like that. And so really kind of what I distilled the secret sauce down to is that there are two ways to go about it. You can either look for a great place that is, great for hiking and then try to find a good home base around there. Or you go after a really great village that you want to visit, and then you have to be a little more intentional about finding hikes around that. So you either go into it looking for the hiking or looking for the home base, but eventually you pair the other part up.
I see. And
if you do that, it becomes a lot easier to find really good adventure home bases.
Wow. And part of what you do is people can hire you to help them do that. Am I right about that?
Yeah. So I'm kind of a trail matchmaker of sorts. And in my book, I highlight 10 of my favorite destinations and the hikes there, so that people could take one of those 10 spots, or like I have some people who are making their way through my book and trying to hike all the hikes, which is so cool. And but you can take one of those spots. The hikes are there. It's a great destination. I've been there myself, so it's all been truth tested. But then, I also like to provide that secret sauce for people to try to find their own hidden gems. But then in terms of being a trail matchmaker, people can book a consultation with me and say, I like this, this, and this. I don't want anything super challenging. I would like to be, in like the foothills of the Alps, but not the high Alps. And this is food is really important to me. So I want to make sure there are really good restaurants.
And chocolate.
And they give me all that information. And then I say, okay, let me get back to you with what I think the very best trail for you is, or the very best village.
That sounds like a really fun puzzle for you.
It is. It's so fun. And so if people are doing multi-day treks, I help them arrange luggage transfer. I help them find great accommodations and other things to do in the area. And then if it's a home base, then, I'm unlocking all of the best hikes in that spot for them and giving them all of my secret tips. And so it's really fun. And I feel like it runs the gamut. Like, some people really want to be challenged, but most of the people want to make an existing kind of trip easier. And so they'll say, hey, how can I cut mileage? Or how can I, shorten the days a little bit? And then I give them tips on okay, here's some great public transportation. Here's a gondola. Here's, the number of a really great taxi that I trust.
Wow. So you highly personalize this.
Yes.
It sounds wonderful. I'm just imagining our listeners, a single traveler, maybe an older woman who wants to have some adventure but needs a little help, and some feeling like I'm not just going into something that I have no idea what to expect. That you really you can really help make that feel accessible and also safe.
Yeah, and my service is really popular too for groups of women, which I think is so great. Like, I have all these groups of women who contact me and they say, kind of like your group, like, we're friends from this other area in our life, whether it's like we love tennis. Actually, I get a lot of tennis players now that I think about it.
Yay.
And they say, we want to go and do an adventure together in a different part of the world. So can you help us put something together? And so it's great because then I get to talk to the different members of the group and say, okay, what do you feel comfortable with? And what are you looking for? And instead of them having to work it out themselves with what their commonality is, I can kind of help suss that out of the group dynamics and figure out who might need a little more help or more creature comforts.
Oh, wow. And so, would it be a Zoom kind of thing where you would...
Yeah, usually Zoom, or sometimes we just do audio over the phone. But sometimes one-on-one and sometimes a group call with everybody.
And so would you, as part of your service, actually make the reservations, or you just say, oh, you should definitely go to this and this place, and then they go and make the reservation?
I usually give people at least two choices based on, like at least two choices in a spot for accommodations, for example, or for a really great restaurant. And then people are responsible for making their own reservations. That way, when they show up and they're like, hey, here's my name, they've already, all the booking details are direct. So it's like they're not trying to get a hold of me here in the States if, something's a little off with their reservation. All of that is in their name under their credit card details. And so it's much easier for them when they're traveling.
That is brilliant. I just love that you do that. It sounds like there's a little, maybe, you really appreciate the individuals in the group, but you're also saying, what in general, what's the mission here? What do you want to do? Easy, moderate, you want to stop at a lot of wineries, right. You want to do chocolate tasting. It just sounds like such a great service.
I really enjoy it. And, I just get the nicest people who call and want help on these trails in Europe. And it's so fun for me to talk to them. And it's cool because this is my favorite thing to do. And I get to help somebody out. So.
And will they come back and say, oh, that was the best restaurant? And,
yeah.
And
they send pictures. They tell me about their
Jean-Paul
adventures.
says hello.
Yeah, it's just wonderful. Yeah.
Aww,
they keep in touch.
That's so lovely. Well, boy, I can't wait to get out there. You're making me even more eager to get out there on a long trail. I don't know if you saw the New York Times article. It just came out, and it was something like why 2023 is the year for long hikes or long walks.
I did
see that?
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. So, Cassandra, where can people find out more about you and your services and all the good stuff?
So my website is definitely the best place to go, and exploreonfoot.com.
Explore on foot, yeah.
Exploreonfoot.com separated by dashes. So explore-on-foot.com.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah. And from there, you can find my books. You can find, links to my trip consultations to book those, to, find out where I'm speaking next, all of that stuff, and contact me directly through email. And then also, my books are on Amazon, and so if you type in either Cassandra Overby or you type in Explore Europe on Foot, you will find all sorts of good info on me, and that's another really great resource.
Oh, I imagine. I'm looking forward to going back and taking a look. It seems like you are at the right place at the right time because people are really craving that, that paring down, and people are also, as you well know, desperate to travel, and everyone's getting older. The demographic is really shifted and people want adventure. So it seems like you hit it just right with your love and your expertise.
Yeah, it's been great timing. And I think especially coming out of the pandemic, people are still, craving a connection because we were so deprived of greater connection for so long. And with this kind of travel, you are getting to know locals. You are just forming those relationships more when you travel, and it makes it more fulfilling. And so I think that's another reason why it's really hitting now. And, think of how many people took up hiking during the pandemic as a way to just get outside and do something because it was like the only thing you could do,
right.
It felt like. And so now, people have some of these skills under their belts and they want to take it around the world. They want to go hike Europe. They want to go hike Southeast Asia and all of these places, which I think is so wonderful.
So it's so wholesome and it sounds so therapeutic and healthy, and it's so good for our souls. And we're all, I think, really craving that right now.
Yeah. And I tell you, even if you don't do a really hard hike, your body is still going to feel amazing after walking every day for say a week, you're going to feel more fit than you've ever felt in your life. And I get a lot of people who say, I've never really done much walking. I'm nervous about this. And then they go out and do it. And it ends up launching some sort of passion for them where they start walking a lot, even in their everyday lives, not just when they go out to travel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could totally see that. Oh, it's been so fun talking to you. I feel like we could talk for hours, and I'd love to hear all of I know you have so many good experiences and adventures, and if people want to know more about that, they can check out I know you've been on Rick Steves' radio show and his TV stuff. So, you're out there telling your stories, and I really appreciate your perspective and especially about, women and how it helps us as we are aging and what it can do for us, our spirit, and help us sort of navigate some of these big shifts. So thank you so much. Really lovely to speak with you.
Well, it was great to speak with you too, Nicole, and I would just encourage anybody who has questions or who's interested more in hiking in Europe to contact me, and I would be happy to help put together a trip for them.
Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. If you like the podcast, please share it with some of your friends. Our music is courtesy of Judy Banker, who was a previous guest on the show. Find out more at judybanker.com. And our technical director is Stephen Litweiler.
Hello, Zesties. Well, many of you know that I've been a psychotherapist for more than 30 years, and I'm an expert in healthy aging. But what you might not know is that I'm also a midlife coach, and I help women like you clarify and design the life you want to live in your second half. A life that's vibrant and feels uniquely like you. Maybe you've spent your entire life caring for others in one way or another, and you're a bit stuck with how to move forward in this new phase of your life. Or maybe you're considering a career change or other big life transition. Or maybe you're in the middle of a life change you didn't see coming. You may be asking yourself questions like, who am I now? And how do I build a new kind of life for myself? Or how do I make the most of the time I have left? This stage in our lives is the perfect time to pause, recalibrate, and reassess where our life is heading and ask ourselves what deserves our precious time. Now is the time to focus on what brings you joy and a sense of deep, calm contentment. I love helping women discover who they are in addition to being caregivers. After our sessions, you will have a clear plan for making your life more vibrant and deeply satisfying. You will feel a sense of control because you will be making choices that are perfect for you. And you will feel more confident because you will have an individualized blueprint to follow. And because you're a Zestful Aging podcast listener, I'm offering a special package deal. Contact me at zestfulaging.com right through my contact link. Time is truly precious, and there's no time to waste. And stay tuned next week for another interview with a fascinating and inspiring guest.